NFL Betting Blitz Week 5. Man, we are moving right along through the NFL season. We have our first bye week. So after Thursday night games, only 13 more for us to discuss this week with the Sunday and the Monday games. Erik, my friend, one of these weeks, it'll see if some of the big favorites start to kind of even things out, because it's been an underdog-heavy season through 4 weeks. For all of you out there, make sure we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you with your thoughts, with your comments on shows and everything. We have a video. The problem is it's with the formatting. Erik does these great videos with us, but it's got to work on some of our formatting, because some of them, when you create them with the Apple stuff, I can't get them up on our shows here back and forth. So I want to make sure we get your hard work that we can all look at, but we'll take care of that, some stuff behind the scenes. Erik, my friend, where do we get started? With the Vikes and the Jets, Sam Darnold and Aaron Rodgers.
That's at halftime right now. That's just a pitiful game.
So what have we seen from that game this morning? Any thoughts you want to mention on that one?
A lot of turnovers. Don't understand.
Ugly London games.
Yeah, just a weird game.
That's the case though with these ugly London games, right? They're a little bit more difficult. We talk about the teams when they travel over. We talk about just experience, coaching from the top down. I always seem to think that the London games, when you don't have the leadership, when you don't have the coaching, when your team's in a little bit of turmoil and you go over and travel, that's probably not the best thing to do, right?
No, these, like, when you get out of your normal circumstances, is a little bit weird. I mean, I was talking to one of my friends, and he said something. He said one of the craziest things I've heard in a while, that if the Jets lose this game, he thinks the Jets are going to fire Hackett. Not Hackett. Saleh, and then promote Hackett, which would be comical in my head.
That would be really funny. But when you just think about the two teams this morning and the way they came into that game, they were heading into it in totally different places. And that's the way we normally like to bet teams, right? When teams are coming in a little overhyped or undervalued. But it's so different when you have to travel across the world, and when you're on those flights and there's probably all these weird feelings right now with the Jets, negativity, questions, anxiety, versus the Vikings. They're just feeling really good about themselves right now, and I wonder what that dynamic was when you're traveling, when you get over there, when you're just feeling really good off the plane. Right now, 17-7 last I looked.
Yeah, 17-7 halfway.
Right, we were getting set up. So let's get to the rest of the games. All of you out there, give us your best bet of the day today. Panthers, Bears, Erik. That'll be the first of the early slate. We have the London game going right now. Bears still at this point getting a little overvalued, in my opinion. 4 is just too much for them against the Panthers team that we've seen be able to score some points now. Since Dalton took over, this team's just way, way different. They're actually an NFL team. They can move the ball. They can run the ball. They're balanced. They have playmakers. The Bears, while their defense has been pretty impressive, we see with their offensive line, they've really struggled. They were able to run the ball a little bit better last week, but that kind of felt like that was a bad spot for the Rams. I still don't know who this Bears team is. I don't really know what their identity is, and I don't feel like they should be favored by more than a field goal. If this was 2.5, I'd probably stay away, but at 3 or anything over, I jump on the Panthers.
Yeah, I got the Panthers at 4.5. I still like it. Like you said, anything over 3. I've been saying this. Now there's 32 teams in the NFL. When we look at the stats, since Dalton has taken over, first downs a game, 9-24, total yards, 174.5 to 422.5. Yards per play, 3.5 to 5.8. Passing yards, 102 to 263. Yards per pass, 3.2 to 5.8. Rushing yards, 74 to 143. Red zone attempts. They had 2 red zone attempts with Bryce Young. To say this offense is insanely better is a vast understatement. Bears could easily be 4-0, 0-4, excuse me. Didn't score an offensive touchdown against the Titans. Rams, red zone turnovers, missed that field goal. Rams, more rushing yards, passing yards, more plays, more everything. They should have won that game. Number, like you said, is too inflated. Bears offensive line is struggling to piece it together. The Bears defense will be able to get to Williams. He's got this elongated throwing motion. Because of that, it's hard for him to get the ball out quick when facing pressure. Panthers, huge upgrade on the offensive line. Now with Dalton there, they're going to be able to lean on it. Bears are 29th DVOA defending the run. I do this DFS segment on my podcast where I tell you the one guy that's included in every single lineup. Chuba Hubbard is that guy this year. I think this week, I think he's in line for an absolute huge game. I like the Bears here, not the Bears, the Panthers here. Anything over 3, I got them at 4.5. Also, the Panthers defense is insanely low on DraftKings. So that would be another thing to kind of look at too.
Yeah, for a Bears offense that doesn't do a whole lot. And you figure with the bad offensive line, you can kind of build a couple sacks in right away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right? So there's a couple free points for you. Can one of those sacks become a fumble or a turnover, right?
Plus, it's insanely, it's right. Their stadium's right on Lake Michigan.
The weather.
Insanely windy down there today.
So not going to be easy there to move the ball through the air and repeatedly. Erik, let's get to our next game on the Sunday slate, Baltimore at the Bengals. This one has moved a little bit because as you and I talked about this game earlier in the week, the Bengals were 2.5-point dogs. That was when I locked it in. Ravens are a 1-point favorite in this game as the numbers sort of move towards Cincinnati. What's kind of your buying point, your selling point? Like what number would you be okay with
right now? I'm sorry.
It's at +1 for Cincinnati. They're at home.
Yeah, I mean,
so basically like a pick 'em here.
Yeah, I would skip it at this point.
Me too. I think the 2.5, 2.
I got it at 2.5.
Same thing.
I'm fine with that, but
after 2, I would stop. Yeah. I would probably like 2 or not. I still would lean Cincinnati. We talk about how, some of us play in picks pools and in spread pools where you have to pick every game. I'm still leaning Cincinnati at this number. I just wouldn't go dive in if you didn't get the +2.5. I feel like that's the point that you wanted. If you didn't, maybe you wait, maybe you can get something live here. It just feels like a spot where Cincinnati is much better than their record would suggest. They could very easily be a team with just one loss. They've been in every game offensively. Their defense struggles. So they're going to have to win games where there's shootouts. For a Baltimore team, we've seen them struggle down the stretch. They get up early in games. I think this will be a game where Cincinnati really tries to sell out to stop the run because we saw Henry so impressive last week. And you just got to force Lamar to hit some of the other receivers and the playmakers. We haven't seen much from Andrews yet. I still think they have lackluster receiving weapons out there. The Bengals feel like the right side. It's just get the best number you can, right? Demand some value here.
Mark Andrews game, maybe.
It's got to be now or never. It's got to be.
They're insane. I also do a DFS article. Like on my podcast, I do the 3 guys that are going to be in every lineup. And then I do an article of the player pool. Derrick Henry is expensive as hell.
Yeah.
But when you look at what issues the Bengals have on the defensive line, he's going to be worth throwing it in there in one contest.
Let's keep rolling along, Erik. We go to the Bills at the Texans. This one I ended up kind of staying away from because both of these teams I'm a little bit curious with. The Bills I want to play because they just got beat up by the Ravens, so you feel like this is the nice spot to play them back. Houston kind of got away with one last week that they should not have won against the Jags. And Houston reminds me this year a little bit of what we've seen from Kansas City. Like neither of these teams have been that impressive. They just have kind of good quarterbacks that know how to win, pretty solidly coached teams, but they feel like there's another kind of lackluster effort coming soon. I'm kind of hemming and hawing with both of these teams. I'm probably going to end up staying away. I lean Bills, but I just not confident enough.
Like when you look at this, you got these teams playing these 2 high safety looks against the Texans, which obviously Stroud has struggled with. We have these questions about the Texans offensive line. Tunsil hasn't been up to standard, but Von Miller's suspended. So they're losing their best pass rusher. Bills like to run the ball. I know the Texans are 4th DVOA against the run, but they are allowing 112.8 yards per game, about 156 to the Jags. I think they're going to be able to run on them. Allen, 60% as a road dog, 3 or less, 70%. Look, Stroud is a favorite, 25%. I know this is basically a pick 'em, but I would lean to the Bills. I mean, if Joe Mixon was playing, I definitely look in the other direction, but
they can't run the ball. at all,
I
right?
really
They've
don't know anything.
really struggled to run the ball. They makes him one-dimensional, puts a lot more pressure on Stroud. They haven't been all that creative either offensively. I've been a little disappointed with Slowick over there, who's been so good some of the last few years. Erik, let's continue along, buddy. We go next to the Colts at the Jags. This is a no Jonathan Taylor game, right?
No Taylor, and I don't think no A-Rich either.
Yeah, so that's why this number is a little bit bigger. You and I will get the actives and inactives any moment now. They usually come out right about this now. So we'll start seeing more of them flooded, and we'll repeat any of them that we have for you. Yeah, I just don't know what the identity of the Colts is going to be without those two guys, because they want to lean on the run so much. I think Flacco is actually probably at this point
a better passer.
Yeah, he's a safer option than Richardson as far as, hey, he can make a few throws. He's going to make one or two bad throws a game, but he can just kind of move you down the field. I'm just a little bit concerned without Taylor too.
Speaking of it, Schefter just did it. Officially inactive.
Okay, so there we go. Yeah, I'm going to stay away from this game just because of that. I'm not exactly sure what to expect from them. Richardson officially inactive. So positive, negative. I'm not as worried about Richardson as I am about Taylor. So I'm just going to stay away from this game. The Jags, this is do or die for them. They're already 0-4. But we did talk about how if you're looking at the Jags, it makes a whole lot of sense if you can find maybe like the Jags to make the playoffs type of a wager somewhere, because they're 0-4 right now. They play the Colts. Then the next 2 weeks, they play the Patriots and the Bears in London. They could very easily be 3-4 coming out of London. So if you think they are, and look through their games so far, right now they're 0-4, Erik. They could be 3-1 very easily. The only game they got beat up was the game against the Bills. Everything else they've been in. It's been 1 or 2 plays late. I'm not acting like they're playing well. They just haven't been so bad that they're an 0-4 team. There's been a couple bounces that have gone against them, and then instead of that, they're 2-2, 3-1. So I'm not necessarily saying to bet them today at 3.5, but if you do like them and you think they're going to win this game, find a better value play, right? A way that you can get a little bit of value out of them. Any other thoughts on this game, Erik?
No, but I want to say to Brandon in the chat room, your Canes got so GD lucky last night. I mean, geez, dude.
I know it was Irvin out there humping the sideline and stuff. You need weird things to happen late in the game like that. Yesterday was a very strange day with a lot of top teams losing, but when that happens, you got to get a little bit lucky. And one thing I'm noticing too with teams moving, conferences realigning and stuff like that, the new teams that go into the more established conferences are never going to get a call. If there is an either or call in any of those games, and you have a former prestigious team in their conference moving to a different conference, they're not going to get the calls. Those old guards in the conferences are always getting the calls right now. Brandon takes a W and luck. I'll take the process over the luck. The process long term is better than the luck. But good to hear from you, Brandon. David, appreciate all of you out there. Sports Facts checking in. Erik, let's go to the Dolphins at the Patriots. This is going to be one of the uglier games of the day. What's our starting quarterback matchup here?
It is Snoop Huntley against Jacoby Brissett.
There we go. Snoop, Jacoby. Now, Snoop, with a little more time, could look more competent today, right? I mean, he came into Miami last week. They didn't have much time with him, but you and I have pointed this out. I've been very disappointed with Mike McDaniel and just not being able to get Snoop, not being able to get Skylar Thompson a little more prepared, not having a better game plan. They still have A-Chain. They still have some playmakers there they can lean on. You got to get these guys in motion. You got to get a little creative with them. Patriots D they're missing some pieces. Patriots offense, they're missing some pieces. This just could be a really, really ugly game, Eric, on both sides. I mean, the total in this game is very low. It's only 36.5. Is that the lowest we've had this year?
That is the lowest we've had this year.
Yeah, so points probably few and far between in here. The only thing that makes this difficult is when you're playing a game like this that's a low scoring game, like we could get a defensive score or two because of the offenses being so bad and the turnover. We also have seen what Brandon's mentioning too. Stevenson fumbled issues. So that's been concerning for them. Any opinion one way or the other here?
I did 2 bets in here. First bet, look, Tyreek Hill's receiving prop is 47.5. I bet him over 47.5 receiving yards. It's going to be a whole week of film. Got to get the ball to Hill. Got to get the ball to Hill. And we saw in week 2 with Marvin Harrison, when you have these wide receivers that don't get the ball, that's mentioned in the film room, and these quarterbacks look to force them to get them the ball. So I did over 47.5 for Tyreek Hill, and plus he's plus 200 to score a touchdown. This Patriots defense gives up 176.5 yards per game to opposing wide receivers, 12 yards per catch, 69% catch rate. Look, it's going to happen, and I think this is the game where we see Tyreek Hill finally go back. They're going to scheme ways to get him the ball.
Wondering now more and more, like Tua, where do we stack him up? Because I never have thought of Tua as like a top 5 quarterback. So I don't feel like the difference between Tua and like a replacement level quarterback should be this much if Tua's just able to kind of hit the spots, hit guys in rhythm. And that just, you see the difference between his sort of, not the arm strength, but maybe some of the mental aspect that just a Tua level quarterback versus a backup guy has when you bring them in here. Been really disappointed in McDaniels overall. I have a Patriots D in a couple spots, maybe a DFS spot too for their defense. If they can get a turnover or two. One of the stronger plays of the week for me, just kind of last week, the way things were going was the Commanders playing against them, because the Commanders have played so well over the last few weeks. But when you look at the defensive that they've been able to play, they've played some of the worst defenses in the league. They've played number 21 defensive DVOA, number 29, and number 22. They've played number 27 EPA per play and number 30 EPA per play. So we're talking about 2 of the bottom 5 defenses, 3 of the bottom 10 defenses in the last 3 games. So I think this is just going to be a big step up for them because Cleveland's been disappointing this year, but we've also seen Cleveland have a much better defense, still have some playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. Eric, talk to us about this one, Washington, Cleveland.
I did it. I took the Browns here plus the 3.5, but I also did a player prop in here as well. I did Amari Cooper over 51.5 yards receiving. I'm still trying to figure out the logic of the Cardinals game plan last week. I know everyone's hyping Jaden Daniels, but he's not playing defense. They're 30th DVOA defensively, 28th defending the pass, and 31st defending wide receiver ones. I know Cooper has been awful this year, but when we look at it, he's due for he's got sure hands. If the season were to end today, this would be the second most drops he's had in a season. So he's due just to catch the ball. He's just dropping the ball.
Last week was bad, and you feel like with a player like that, when they have a drop, there was a penalty. That wasn't his fault or anything. Yeah. You just sort of feel like in football, it's great. This is kind of like the way it goes in the basketball playoffs too. When you have a week in between, a lot of time to think about what happened, and you have the opportunity to scheme some things. Like they got to get the ball in his hands on the first drive a couple times, right off the bat this week.
Especially with the matchup. And Stefanski's great at scheming.
Absolutely.
He is 4th in the league in air yards. That's just basically just passes thrown. So he definitely is getting targeted, leads them. He has 47% of the Browns air yards, 30% of a first read option. I think it's going to be a heavy Amari Cooper type game. And then in terms of the sides, I did it too. I took the Browns here plus 3.5. We talk about buying low, selling high. This is the highest the Commanders are going to be all year.
And one of the lowest that the Browns are, because even though they lost to the Raiders were coming off of getting drubbed the week before by the Panthers. The Raiders didn't even have Adams or Crosby playing last week, but there were a couple of plays that were huge swing plays in that game that the Browns really should have won that game.
100%. And that was a phantom hold call.
There was not a penalty on that. And I backed the Raiders. That was not a penalty.
Looking at it, teams that won by 24 points or more that are home favorites, 46% against the number. Best defense Daniels has played. Smorts will make life hell for Daniels. The biggest thing with the Commanders is the success of the offensive line. But the last time they played a great pass rusher as they did with Thibodeau with the Giants, they could not score a touchdown. I think Garrett is going to make Daniels' life very tough. Plus, with how bad defensively the Commanders are, do we trust them laying this many points over the key number of 3 and to win with margin? Defensively, 30th DVOA, 30th defending the pass, 28th defending the rush. I know the Browns will struggle, but I think they're going to be able to move the ball. The Commanders secondary, one of the worst in the league. That's going to open up some lanes because they're going to drop people back to help defensively. Chubb is back. And look, it's not so much Chubb is going to play. It's the mental aspect of Chubb being on the field because he is the real leader of this team. So I'm taking the Browns here plus the 3.5.
Yeah, Browns feel like the spot to be in here. So out. Wow, just the Colts. Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, defensive end Pay, cornerback Kenny Moore, defensive end Abukum, Tyquan Lewis, DeForest Buckner, and Juju Brents, all out.
Jeez,
for the Colts today. That's insane. Shefty just tweeted that one a minute ago. Richardson out. Brian Robertson is up for the Commanders. Browns Njoku is up. Damian Pierce and Evan Ingram both out. So a couple more that are coming through right now. Just been a little disappointing for Evan Ingram drafters early in the year because he's been hurt. And that's been he's not the only reason, but in 3 games that the Jags barely lost, having your major weapon from last year sure would have helped, right? Just a few more easy looks for Evan Ingram. Shout out to Stan, who was talking about the Cal game last week.
I had that parlay too, Stan, but I round robin. So, I got 3 out of 4, but that Cal one hurt because there is no that should have been a targeting, and it just is what it is.
I Need Sports talking about Diggs over 54.5. I could see it being a Diggs game, kind of a quiet game. Because it was a big Collins game last week, right? Maybe we go. Maybe it kind of evens things out a little bit here because you don't want that squeaky wheel over there with Diggs starting to squeak. Where are we next, Eric? We go to the Raiders at the Broncos. Broncos are a 3-point favorite in this game, coming off of a game where they had some of the funnier stats that you'll see, where at halftime, Bo Nix was 7 for 15 for -7 yards. And 5 different guys caught a pass, and none of them had positive yardage. He did not complete a pass beyond the line of scrimmage in the first half. He was 7 passes completed, -7. And then in the passes beyond the line of scrimmage, he was 0 for 8. He did not generate a successful play on any of the 16 dropbacks. The lowest passing yards per attempt in a game that they won. They had 60 passing yards total on 25 attempts. Still, with all that ineptitude, one thing that they needed to do, because most football games, Eric, aren't blowouts. Even bad teams against good teams, usually 2 or 3 plays can flip those games. You have to be able to, when the game is on the line, block all of that out. And hey, can I take this team and can I drive them down and score? And I will give Nix a lot of credit because there was one drive they needed to get 73 yards. They get a touchdown. That's the difference in the game. The Jets weren't able to do that throughout the entire game. Both teams were playing with bad weather, but Nix was able to lock down when needed. One thing that was important for them, throwing the ball a little bit more to Sutton. They got Williams, who kind of stepped up, and in particular on that big drive, he had a few really nice runs for them. 9 yards, 9 yards, 1 yard, 16 yards. So if you've got the ball, you're driving down, you're not getting big plays from anyone, and all of a sudden your back rips off a 9-yard run, and then another 9-yard run, and then a 16-yard run. Very positive stuff for them. I don't know. This number kind of feels right. Do you go one way or the other here at 3, or have you locked it in at a different number?
I got the Raiders here. I got them at 3.
Yeah.
Buying low, selling high. Last 20 years, teams coming off back-to-back road wins, 40.2% ATS in the third game. Small divisional road dogs that are 3 points or less, 55% the last 20 years, 57% the last 10. Last 5 years, 60. Browns struggled against the Raiders. They're 1-12 ATS the last 13 games. Can you name the last starting quarterback that got a win for the Broncos against the Raiders?
Brock Osweiler.
Close. Drew Lock.
Okay.
Drew
I
Lock.
was trying.
Broncos offensive line has struggled when they lost Cushenberry to the Titans. Raiders are getting Crosby back. That makes this D-line one of the better ones in the league. I think they're going to be able to get to Knicks. Broncos run a wide 9 system, can be run on by a wide zone blocking scheme. That's what the Raiders run. Same, the wide 9 is what the Browns run. And the Raiders had their best rushing game last year with 153 yards. So I think even though White is out, Madison is in line to have a good game. The trends, the matchups tell me to take the Raiders. So I'll take the Raiders here plus the 3.
To be on the Raiders side, if had to go one way or the other. Stan likes Debo over 52.5 receiving yards. David talks about Tebow as
Tebow.
Let's go next, Eric. The 49ers, 7-point favorite over the Cardinals. I like the 49ers to win this game. I think they're the better football team. Honestly, the one thing I've been the most impressed with over the last few weeks is just Purdy. He continues to improve. When he came into the league, he was such a polarizing player because he came in right away. He had all this success and everybody wanted to discount him. But it was funny. It was like the conversation with Purdy is never really, it shouldn't ever be as extreme as it is. Like, he's never been quite as good as some of the numbers would suggest, but he's never been bad. He's always been pretty impressive and a lot better than anyone would really expect to have Purdy. It just, we see with the Shanahan offense, kind of like we were talking about with McDaniel, Shanahan puts all of his players in position to look good and to succeed. That's a really good coach. He's done it with guys like Nick Mullins and Jimmy G, who weren't the best of quarterbacks. He put them in positions to be successful. So I think sometimes we can question how good the quarterbacks are, or is it really a system? Man, I see Purdy buying time, though, making good decisions, scrambling around, making some plays with his feet. That's what's impressed me. This number, though, for a 49ers team that's still a little banged up, Eric, for a Cardinals team that I think is a little undervalued because we all saw them get their butts kicked last week by Washington. And the one thing that we can say about Arizona, they can score. So, I mean, is there a possibility that the 49ers are up this entire game by 10 to 13 points and we get a backdoor late from Arizona?
So here's my thing. I got the Cardinals. I got them at over 7.5. But
sure.
I'm looking at the betting splits right here, Cardinals are the biggest public dog. So public dogs is never the side you want to be on. I got this at 7.5. Road divisional dogs. Last 20 years, they're getting over 7 or 50% against the number. I love taking Murray as a dog, 63.4% as a dog, getting 3 or more, 67%. Teams that lost by 24 points or more last 20 years are 54%, 3.7% ROI. The last 5 years, they're 55%. Then there's this weird rule of 17. Teams that lost by 17 that play a team that won by 17 are 61% ATS. Look, 49ers are good. And I feel if there's a team that we can get some value on betting a future to win it all right now, it's the 49ers with everything they've gone through. Injury-wise, McCaffrey's not there. Debo's been banged up. Ayuk doesn't look right because he's sat out because of the contract situation. But in this game, with it being over 7 and what Murray can do extending plays, I'm going to take the Cardinals here plus 7.5.
Yeah, that's what concerns me. Like, I've seen some people throwing in the 49ers minus the 7. First off, when I'm always going to try to talk anybody off of playing somebody that's like more than a 3-point favorite. It's just not the way I bet, because your motivations and a team's motivations that are favored by a touchdown or more aren't the same. Like, they're not trying. You're just trying to cover. You don't need to cover by 7. They're just trying to win. So David, number 2 ranked rush offense, number 7 ranked. Like, a lot of the things you're saying are positive, right? But could this game be 49ers by 10 most of the game and you just get a garbage touchdown? That's how you have to think of it as a bettor.
Yeah.
It's
and I mean,
more
like,
of the process and the type of wagers you make, right? If you're making wagers like this, you're going to lose long term if you're betting big favorites with that need to cover by margin. So it's one of those things, if you're someone who's betting often, you have to try to kind of teach yourself and train yourself just not even to really look at numbers that get this big. Like, once a number gets up in that range, you're just sort of like, I'm not playing it. You don't have to go the opposite way. It just is sort of like I very rarely see like the bigger bettors laying numbers that are big, right? When you look at people that are betting large amounts of money and big gamblers, you're just not seeing them laying 5, 6, 7. So that's the only thing I would say as far as when I'm looking for best bets. I'm looking for maybe a dog, some teams that are a little overvalued, not necessarily a spot like this, because I think like for top flight picks, you could have the right side of the game over and over and over again, and you just could get beat with a garbage time score in something like this. So 49ers could win by 50. I still don't think it's the right play to make with that type of a thing, right? We have to be process-oriented bettors versus result-oriented bettors. Erik, Packers at the Rammies. Rammies last few weeks kind of been a yo-yo, right? Come back, they get the big win against the 49ers. They're down the whole game. It's kind of an emotional win for them. Last week, it felt like it was a flat spot coming off of that big win the week before. The few balls don't bounce their way. Should have been able to win that game. They don't end up covering. Lots of things when you look at the box score. But it does feel like the side to kind of go back on the Rams. Top flight picks would agree that the Rams kind of feels like the side there, plus the 3 at home.
I was hoping to get the 3.5. I know I was at 3.5 earlier. Definitely missed that. I'm kicking myself a little bit for missing that. What the Rams like to do is they like to run the football, and the Packers struggle running the football. Rams, when we look at the box score, they should have won the game against the Bears. They constantly just kept on shooting themselves. Packers messed up. Packers have a great team, loaded roster. They're missing some key pieces. I don't think Josh Jacobs is where I would have spent my money. I think Josh Jacobs is a little overvalued. I think they should have looked to do a little bit more on the defensive line. But in this matchup, Stafford at home getting the points, a team that's going to look to run the ball against a team that struggles running the ball defensively, I'm going to take the Rams here. I'm fine playing the 3, but I wanted the 3.5.
Same thing. 3 was fine with me. I wouldn't want to go less than that, but just kind of feels like the right spot to go back on the Rams. Giants at the Seahawks. Seahawks are a 7-point favorite and no neighbors number.
No
right?
neighbors. So
that's just going to be tough for the Giants moving the ball, right? They've been leaning on him so much early, and I'll give them a lot of credit, the coaching staff and Jones. You have a playmaker, try to find him. Now he's not there. You don't have Barkley to lean on. It feels like they're going to have a hard time moving the ball. On the flip side, Seattle, they can score. Defensively, I think they're a little bit overrated. And I still think as a whole, they're a little bit overrated because they did have a very soft schedule the first few weeks. Where do you stand in this game?
So what I did is I took the Giants here. And for me, this is just kind of a situational type spot. Seattle went from Seattle, where they played the Broncos, to New England to play the Patriots, back to Seattle to play the Dolphins, then to Detroit to play the Lions. Now they're back in Seattle to play this game, and they have a short week against the 49ers on deck. I think this is just a situational spot where they do not cover. Also, we've seen this trend where running backs, so Kenneth Walker, that are the lead backs, the Sunday before they have a Thursday game, they don't get as much run, if that makes sense, because they're kind of saving them for the short week. Jones, 65% as a dog. Smith, 41% as a home favorite. Is Forsythe's, the tackle for Seattle, going to be able to stop Thibodeau? Right side of Seattle's line is a little bit worrisome. Teams that played in the Eastern time zone on Monday Night Football coming back to play in the Western time zone the following week, 43% against the number. That's another one of those travel type trends. Seattle, they may be good, but when we kind of look at their whole body of work, like, has it really been that impressive?
No.
Detroit handled them pretty well, even though Detroit was trying to give the ball away. Barely beat the Broncos. Bo Nix's first road start, and then also barely beat the Patriots. So I'm going to take the 6.5 here. I could be eating crow. I know David in the chat, him and I have a nice little bet on this game. So we'll see which one of us is better. Which one of us
gets the job done.
Which one of us wins the Miller Lite?
2 games more to discuss Sunday and a Monday night. Dallas at the Steelers. Pittsburgh 2.5-point favorite in this one. Pittsburgh comes off of their loss last week. This is one of those games to do when I started hemming and hawing and I didn't know what to do with, because I feel like Pittsburgh, good defense. You sort of know who they are. You don't really like playing them in situations, though, where they're favored or they have to kind of cover with any sort of margin. Dallas has been extremely disappointing. I don't know this team's identity at all. They lack playmakers. They lack backs. They only have one real receiver. Defensively, they have a bunch of injuries right now, and some of their top-tier defensive playmakers are going to be out. I'm going to stay away from this one. At the number 2.5, do you play or have you locked anything in for Cowboys Steelers?
I would normally play the Steelers here, but I have so much day action, I'm going to pass. I just think it's too much for the Cowboys with the issues they have on the defensive line to go in there and get the win. Also, Justin Fields is going to throw crazy. The offensive line of the Cowboys, I don't think is going to be able to block at all.
Yeah, I'm on the. So you're on the Pittsburgh side, but you're not betting the 2.5. You got a lot of other action. Yeah, I would lean Pittsburgh, but I'm kind of the same with you. Like, it's not one that I'm lining up. David likes Dallas first half money line plus the 120. The Pittsburgh is another one of those teams that's like, you bet it. They did the same thing last year too, right? Where you play opposite of them first half and then you play Pittsburgh to win the game. I've seen a lot of people play those parlays because that's kind of a thing that the Steelers do. They're not a team that overwhelms you with their offense. They get down a little bit, but then they sort of wear you down with a couple turnovers late. Maybe that's something you can look to play there, David. Final game, Eric. I locked this one in at the Saints plus the 5.5. I also played the Saints on the money line. Looking at the Saints' first 2 weeks, everything went well for them. And we saw what their ceiling could be, a really good team. Center got hurt. They got a few bad bounces. Week 3, they didn't play well. They still were in that game and could have beat the Eagles. And then last week, the Falcons won basically by getting 2 touchdowns where they didn't have to do anything. The Saints turned the ball over and muffed a punt, and it was sitting in the end zone. The Falcons literally had to run and lay on the ball to score 1 touchdown. Their second touchdown was off a tipped pass that landed right into a Falcons defender's hand, and all he had to do was just run back into the end zone. So they got 2 scores that way. The Falcons did not score an offensive touchdown, and even with all of that, the Saints had the lead, and the Falcons had to drive down and kick a 58-yard field goal to win the game. So things have even out for the Saints now, and it feels like it's about to go back the other way. And for the Chiefs, for example, they have had a lot of luck, and now the injuries are starting to pile up for them. It just feels like one of these weeks coming up is going to be that bad game for the Chiefs where they get beat by 20. I wouldn't be shocked if it's this game, because it just feels like the Chiefs aren't bad, but they're not going to win every single game on like the last play of the game or in a crazy, exciting game. That's just not the way things go. So I'm looking for that regression, just as David was saying. Chiefs to come back to life a little bit. Saints to get a few of those bounces that they haven't gotten the last couple weeks. I locked in the Saints and on the money line. Eric, how about for you?
Yeah, I got the Saints here plus 5.5. Mahomes laying 3.5 or more, 45% ATS. How is this Chiefs offense going to look with no Rice? I think the guy they're going to look to throw to is Juju Smith-Schuster. Maybe have a couple props going with him. Chiefs are allowing 99 yards per game to DVOA versus the run. But when you kind of look at who they play the Chargers, missing 2 offensive linemen. Play the Falcons, missing offensive linemen. Play the Bengals, who don't run the ball. When they play the Ravens, who like to run the ball, they gave up 185 yards. Carr, 55% ATS as a dog, 60% ATS as a road dog. I think with the blocking, this new zone blocking scheme that the Saints do, they're going to be able to take advantage of the front line of the Chiefs. Carr historically has done well against the Chiefs. And it's just the oldest time. David hit Chiefs are a public misconception cover team, which they aren't. If you fade Mahomes anytime he's laying over 3, it is statistically a long-term winner, and that's what I'm doing here. Give me the 5.5 with the Saints.
Thanks to all of you for hanging out with us today. Before we get out of here, I wanted to show some of the folks out there something that I think you'll be very interested in. Every Saturday, every Sunday, when Santa Anita has racing going on, they have a contest called the Pick'Em contest. It's 12 props, and it's totally free to enter. All you have to do is go register, so don't have to put in any type of entry fee or anything. All you have to do is answer the 12 prop questions. So for today, total yards combined in the Packers-Rams game. Let's say you thought it was going to be 687. You type that in, and it'll tell you your tiebreaker answer has been submitted. So it lets you know once you answer every question. Pick the winner of Santa Anita race number 1. Maybe we'd say Oscar Joy. Oscar Joy's pick comes in. Broncos-Raiders. We were talking about this game a little earlier on. The number's 2.5. Can go either way. We both leaned Raiders plus 3 if we wanted to go Raiders. So what's cool about this, it's simple props. It's not hard the questions aren't hard, but they're combinations of football, of horse racing. I don't know if today there were any baseball. I know yesterday there was some MLB along with the college football. So it's pretty cool, Eric, because I don't know a lot of things that are like this, where they're cross sport props. You can also win $1,000 where, you have an opportunity every Saturday and every Sunday, $1,000. So make sure you get involved. These are totally free to enter. Pick'em.santanita.com. Every Saturday, every Sunday. Santa Anita is racing right now. So a lot of cool stuff for Santa Anita. Make sure you go to drf.com, shop.drf.com. You can get all the handicapping tools that you need, past performances, clocker reports, all the good stuff. So for all of our friends out there commenting today, we were going to give away a free wager on the Sunday night football game. Eric, you want to spin that bad boy up?
Boom.
Spin. Where does it stop? Let's see. Who do we have? Brandon. Shout out to Brandon. Brandon, get in touch with me on social media. We're going to make a wager for you tonight on the Sunday night football. $50. You can do it on the game total, the game or the total. So for you, Brandon, if you want to play that, it's for tonight. You can play let's give you your line right now. You can play Pittsburgh minus 2.5. Dallas plus 2.5, or over 43.5, under 43.5. Those are the sides that you have, Brandon. Get in contact with Eric or with me. We'll put your wager in for you tonight. Anything else you want to mention, buddy, before we get out of here?
No. Good luck in your bets, and hopefully we can make some money today.
We'll see you again next week right here at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern time. Good luck.